Good evening, this is NTV Weekend Edition, and as always, we kick off with a look at the stories making headlines tonight. Four dead in suspected tribal clashes in the western Uganda districts of Bundibujo and Kasese.
I'm Chris Ochamringa to bring you a story of a senior NRM party leader who's faulting the party for failing to build a political culture that can take this country to greater heights.
Oftentimes, scientists and economists have drawn a thin line between population growth and economic development. Next week is World Population Day, and family planning has come to sharp focus as one of the issues that affect population growth. I am Moses Akena to give you details on that story in a short while.
Deja University Women Volleyball Club wind up the first round of the National Volleyball League with a clean sheet. Join me, Sam Poza, for the details of this story.
You are watching NTV Weekend Edition.
Good evening once again. Welcome to NTV Weekend Edition. I am Rukshana Namuimba. In our top story tonight, at least 4 people have died in Bundibujo and Kasese districts following attacks by unknown people. According to the Army spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Paddy Ankunda, police and the Army have deployed in the area to contain any more violence. He says that the attacks could have been the result of tribal clashes between the Bakonzo and Bamba tribes. We spoke to Paddy Ankunda and NTV's correspondent in Kasese, Stephen Kalisia.
We are investigating, Emmanuel. We are still investigating. There are indications now that this could be tribal clashes, this could be tribal attacks. But we are going to investigate and find out exactly what it is. So far, quite a couple of people have died, and our forces are on the ground trying to find out exactly what these attacks are about. Well, right now we have reported that at least 4 people have died in both Kasese and Bundibujo, but our forces are there. People should calm down. There is no cause for alarm. We are in charge of the situation. Well, there are indications that this could be Bakonjo versus Bamba Bamwisi clashes, but we're not going to point fingers. We need to investigate thoroughly well and find out what these are. No indications of ADF in this at the moment, but the ADF are greatly weakened. We are not worried about ADF, particularly in that part of the country.
6 people, including a UPDF officer and a policeman, have been killed in different attacks and 2 guns stolen from a police in Kasese. And police and the army are combing the bushes following up the unknown attackers and to establish the cause of the attack. And so far, the situation is getting better because security forces are actually getting to people and telling them to calm down, that they are in control of the situation. And a similar situation has been reported in Bundibujo, where Kicho police post was attacked, and the attackers injured the OC station and took away with a gun. In the attack, 1 person is reported dead, and a gun was also taken. So the situation in Kasese, currently as I speak now, business has actually returned to normal, but it had caused some kind of test, and people were actually wondering if maybe it was again ADF attack, like they have gone through this kind of situation in the past. During the day at around 2 o'clock, that's when the attackers attacked 2 police men who were guarding a way bridge of Yunra near KCCL on the Mbarara Road, and killed 1 policeman and took away with 2 guns.
Stephen Kalisia, NTV correspondent in Kasese. Human rights activists have condemned the way police and the public handled the arrest of 2 Eritrean nationals at Forest Mall in Lugogo yesterday. The activists argue that such acts of racial profiling can fuel hatred and segregation of foreigners from the Horn of Africa and in turn radicalize some members of the communities.
When reports emerged yesterday that 2 terror suspects had been apprehended at Forest Mall in Lugogo, the message quickly spread across social media platforms. In the racially tinged messages, many of those who took to cyberspace caricatured the duo as Somali suicide bombers. But as the day wore on, it turned out that the duo were Eritrean nationals. Police publicist Fred Enanga said though public should remain vigilant, he implored them to avoid racial profiling.
We ask the public also to be very cautious in the whole process so that we don't start singling out people based on ethnic.
Human rights activists have accused the police of mishandling the arrests, which could instill fear and hatred among its nationals from the Horn of Africa.
Terrorism is a global crime, it's a regional crime, it's a national crime in everywhere. It's a menace which came now in this age. We must all fight, singling out certain communities and disproportionately harassing them or bullying them aside with counterproductive, and it will never combat any kind of terrorism.
Hassan Shear, a human rights activist, says that most of the intelligence used by the Uganda police to track down suspected terrorists is largely from the Somali community.
They are the ones who are saying there are people, that number of people who have out of our dragnet on our observation in Somalia, they might be ended up in Kenya or in Uganda. These are the descriptions of these people. You must be careful. Who is provided? The Somali government.
He also says Somalis contribute positively to Uganda's economy.
So they should feel at home. They are law-abiding, they are refugees sometimes, they are business people, they are normal people, day-to-day people. So Uganda should remain still open and welcome, but still we must fight security in a very efficient manner.
Members of this community living in Uganda continue to live in fear.
Abuse all over. If you go to town for shopping, if you go somewhere, you can't go when you feel okay. They overtalk people, they turn to look at you. We just leave them.
And most of the time, whatever happens, they name it to the name of Somali, They say the Somalis did that. And when we are in Kampala at the street, if things like that happens, they say Al-Shabaab did that, and they call us even Al-Shabaab.
Security experts and human rights activists say that Somali nationals should not be looked at as the only suspects and that a terrorist can be anyone. Suhail Mugabe, NTV.
Now, on Talk of the Nation tonight, we will be discussing the question of terrorism a little later on. Now, moving on, over the years, the ruling NRM party has lost a number of senior ideologues after they fell out with the system, citing diversion from the original cause of the struggle. Now, yet another senior party member, secretary of the NRM Historical Leaders Forum, Magode Ikuya, says the party has created a political crisis in Uganda by failing to live up to the ideals it set out during the liberation struggle. In an interview with NTV, the veteran NRM leader claimed that top party leaders are now preoccupied with retaining their positions instead of taking the country on the right path. Chris Ochamaringa has that special report.
The NRM party has over the years developed a thick skin to criticism from members of the opposition over matters governance. But the party that has also had senior members fall out and turn critics has a new sharp critic from within, the publicity secretary of the Historical League, James Magode Ikuya. He accuses the party leadership of failing to create a political culture that enables democracy to flourish.
We do not have variety of ideas really marking our political life. We did hope that when the NRM came to power, we would have released a lot of efforts and organized a lot of energy over our people. As it is, you can see that the thing is rather becoming subdued. People, general lack of activity and indolence in terms of perspective.
Ikuya, a veteran of the NRM struggle, argues that party leaders are no longer working to transform the country.
It was a political crisis. It's a part of the collapse of politics. So you need to raise politics first. Politics must be raised. And therefore, groups with political ideas must first come and shape up the new situation.
But the Minister for the Presidency, Frank Tumwebaze, who's a latter-day NRM ideologue compared to Ikuya, scoffed at his sentiments, arguing that the party has delivered on its promises to Ugandans.
We have a chronology of achievements, which I believe he can be privy to. My only question to Mzee Magode Ikuya is, what specific issues does he think the leaders of the NRM are not addressing? I have seen all of them who call themselves independent-minded. Why are you taking yourself away from the party and then engaging in blame gaming? Why don't you offer that constructive guidance?
Since 1986, when President Yoweri Museveni shot his way to power, a number of his senior NRM colleagues have fallen out with the party, accusing it of diverting from the original ideals of the struggle. A 2012 audit on the performance of the NRM government by a coalition of civil society organizations showed that the party had made little or no substantive progress on most of the promises in its manifesto. The audit cited deficits in the areas of good governance and deepening of democracy. It's now 2 years since the report was made public, and some Ugandans are raising concern about corruption and the path that the NRM party is taking the country.
It should fight corruption. Corruption has killed NRM.
I could suggest at least they should have the heart of nationalism.
NRM has fallen off the cliff, and it is going to drag everyone in a yellow shirt with it.
Magode Ikuya also has a bone to pick with the NRM Parliamentary Caucus for the resolution it passed in Chankwanzi district in February this year. The MPs endorsed President Museveni as the sole candidate for the 2016 general elections at the National Leadership Institute.
You cannot say and tell people beforehand that the position of his candidature must not be debated, because that question has not come to any organs of the NRM anywhere. We don't. So this is why that question I described once as a circus.
To him it may be a circus, but he doesn't know why we moved it. We have our own justification.
Could you explain that justification?
Oh my God, we gave it in Chankwanzi. We support longevity, we support continuity, and we support the idea that for parties to deliver on their manifestos, they must have candidates that are winners. So we believe President Museveni is our winning candidate. By the way, the Chankwanzi resolution was exaggerated, actually misinterpreted. We did not decree we did not decree that thou shalt never be able to contest. We said that for purposes of our party cohesion, okay, our candidate is President Museveni, and we shall recommend him to the other organs.
We caught up with the mover of the Chankwanzi resolution, the Northern Uganda Youth MP, Evelyn Anite. She says it was the best thing for the country, but the elderly historical disagrees.
He doesn't understand the genesis of this resolution. But as the mover of the resolution, I want to tell you, it was actually a blessing for the party, because now we clearly know who is our candidate. There was a lot of rumor mongering that His Excellency, the President, was not going to stand. There's a lot of rumor mongering about so many other people who are going to stand in the party. And this was starting to cause a lot of tension in the party, hence leading to lack of party cohesion.
That's not an issue for a team that is winning or intends to win. You don't get matches by asking so and so must be the one to play. No, the issue is what game do we want to play?
The NRM party began laying ground for the president's 2016 campaign by dishing out 4 million shillings to over 200 of its MPs to popularize the president's candidacy following the Chankwanzi resolution. I asked the minister for the presidency whether that was a prudent way to spend party funds.
When Besigye and Mugishamuntu are moving at Nyirinji, are they using paper bags to move around? Or money is talked about when it's NRM. You see, you must know why NRM is very transparent, okay? When we are going to the sub-counties and we've been given money from our party, we must publicize it for all to know, so that nobody diverts the money.
For now, the political landscape looks set to witness more cash handouts from politicians seeking to win votes in 2016. The 2011 NRM manifesto has grand plans of transforming this country by stimulating productivity in the agriculture, industry and service sector. But a number of people we spoke to here in the city say that has all been overshadowed by political maneuvers, by leaders at all levels who are bent on retaining positions. And that, of course, comes at the expense to the ordinary people. Chris Ochamringa, NTV, Kampala.
Thank you, Chris Ochamaringa. Moving on, Principal Judge Justice Yorokamo Bamwine has warned state attorneys and magistrates against collusion with suspects seeking lighter sentences. The Principal Judge's remarks follow reports of alleged distortion of evidence by the state attorneys and magistrates who have more often than not acquitted suspected criminal offenders. Justice Bamwine was speaking during the launch of the Client Charter and Prosecution Guidelines by the Directorate of Public Prosecutions.
State attorneys and several officers from the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions and other stakeholders gathered for the launch of the Client Charter and Prosecution Guidelines. The Principal Judge, Justice Yorokamo Bamwine, used this opportunity to warn state attorneys and magistrates against collusion.
I receive complaints on a daily basis. People are saying, if you want an acquittal, just talk to the state attorney. The state attorney will talk to the magistrate and you'll get what you want.
Justice Bamwine further warned magistrates against rushing to arrive at judgments that taint the name of the judiciary and cause the public to lose trust in them.
We don't want guilty men and women to go back home laughing at the judicial system, because they were acquitted when they committed the offenses, but at the same time, we don't want anybody, any innocent person, to be convicted for an offense he never committed.
Although suspects have a right to bail, Justice Bamwine says that state attorneys are not doing enough to challenge the defense in court in order for the presiding judge to rule otherwise.
If you don't object, and object strongly, the court will decide the matter in favor of the suspect. But if you give your reasons, even if you are overruled, at least you will have done your part.
As the judiciary continues to grapple with a huge case backlog, Justice Bamwine says that the prosecution contributes to a big fraction of unresolved cases. Among the prosecution guidelines launched is the need for prosecution to summarize to court the aggravating and mitigating factors that will assist it to pass the most appropriate sentence. The chief guest was Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Major General Kahindo Tafire, who promised to lobby responsible authorities to consider improving the welfare of prosecutors.
The inadequacy of staff. It has now dawned on us that, judges and magistrates are lining up for prosecutors. The judges are now booking prosecutors. You'll be in my court. Where it should be the other way around.
Otafire also said that government will double the number of prosecutors to bridge the understaffing gap.
I'm going to take up this matter with the Public Service Commission seriously. So that if we can't eliminate the stressful situation entirely due to budget constraints, at least we make relief.
Other cardinal prosecution guidelines include juvenile justice. During perusal and trial stage of juvenile, prosecutors should always give priority to cases involving juveniles. Prosecutors should ensure that cases involving juvenile offenders in magistrate courts are prosecuted within a period of 3 months. Prosecutors should develop child-friendly skills while handling child witnesses.
If you don't understand the people you lead, then you are better go and concentrate on your goats and cows and ducks and...
Lawmakers want government to drop a proposal in this financial year's budget to impose an 18% VAT tax on all agriculture inputs. With the majority of impoverished Ugandans employed in the agriculture sector, lawmakers argue that the move is counterproductive.
In Uganda, about 82% of the population is employed in the agriculture sector, which significantly contributes to the country's gross domestic product. The exemption of taxes on agricultural inputs has lessened the burden on farmers who practice subsistence farming largely. However, this tax exemption has been waived this financial year after the Finance Minister, Maria Kiwanuka, during her budget speech, introduced a new levy. Kiwanuka imposed an 18% tax on all agricultural inputs, whether imported or manufactured within the country. So whether it is subsistence or commercial farmers, they are expected to pay 18% VAT on the supply of agriculture and dairy machinery, cereals grown and milled or produced in Uganda, processed milk and milk products, supply of machinery and tools for agriculture, supply of seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, animal feeds and hose, among others. For instance, if a tractor or a milling machine costs 100 million shillings, the 18% levy will push the cost to 118 million shillings. According to the Finance Minister, these tax measures are projected to yield more than 30 billion shillings in revenue, which is about 0.2% of the entire budget. But members of the 9th Parliament have put up a flag against the taxes.
These are subsistence farmers whose activity is hand to mouth and they live literally for sale. So now, if you go ahead and tax them, you have killed the whole enterprise. So I don't think in Parliament we shall support that component of taxing the farm inputs.
But what we need to know, that we have to put taxes and then we don't kill the growth of the GDP. Because sometimes taxes can be put to hinder production, and which is not good for the economy.
It's going to be very expensive for the rural farmer. So to me, I think the tax on agriculture is doubtable, and I wouldn't really support it when it comes to the debate on this budget in the House.
A case has been put up by farmers, by manufacturers associated with crops and so on, and they have made a good case. I think something may happen in the near future.
Though few individuals and industries are engaged in commercial farming, most of the farmers are still engaged in subsistence farming. There are also farmers who have contributed a lot in food security, like those who grow beans, maize, sorghum, wheat, millet, cassava, cocoa, and many other types of fruits that are both consumed locally and exported. Lawmakers now suggest that government would have helped these farmers transform from subsistence to commercial farming before thinking of taxing them highly.
My people in Teso have not yet, embraced fruit growing because the factory is not there. They had started, but they have not moved. If today we were talking and we would see people with acres and acres of fruits, of mangoes and the oranges in Teso, there you can now tax them.
We think that that decision requires a review because logically you tax consumption, not production. So anything that is required for production purposes, in my view, should not be taxed.
The chairman of the House Committee on Agriculture, Mathias Kasamba, says he has received many petitions against the taxes. But as the House prepares to commence debate on the budget, it remains to be seen if lawmakers will walk the talk. Agnes Nandutu, NTV, back to you, Rukushana.
Thank you, Agnes Nandutu. Now, property worth millions has been destroyed in a fire that gutted a dormitory at Chibuli Secondary School last night. As the news began to trickle in, parents stormed the school to check on the safety of their children. The fire started between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m., although the cause has not yet been established by the police.
Not even police are certain of what caused the fire that destroyed property worth millions of shillings at Chibuli Secondary School last night. The fire is said to have started between 8 and 9 p.m. at the Senior 1 dormitory block when students were attending preps.
Around 8:20, we had the Dua from force, so we are now a Dua. So we had voices coming from this end calling us to save because the domes had caught fire.
We came in, fought the fire and managed to put it off. What I can say is that there is no cause for alarm.
As the news trickled in, parents rushed to the school to check on the safety of their children.
Have a committee of only two parents like this. We go with you because you have already assessed damage. We look at that, we come and tell the parents and they move away.
No deaths were reported, though the school administration was disappointed with the slow response of the fire brigade.
Somehow we delayed to get the fire masters and fire brigade.
By this morning, the situation was calm as the school administration was over what to do next. The school authorities allowed parents to take their children back home. Solomon Kawesa, NTV.
Thank you, Solomon. Now, the remarkable increase in Uganda's population to 35 million currently has redirected the focus on family planning as one of the ways of checking this trend. This is as government seeks to balance social services with the population so as to facilitate economic growth. Moses Akena put the question on the relationship between family planning and development to the Commissioner for Community Health, Dr. Anthony Mbonye.
Statistics show that Uganda has one of the youngest population in the world, with 78% below 30 years.
We have had lowered the infant mortality from 76 to now 54. It would mean there will be a rapid population growth because more children are being born and few people are dying.
So, what are the benefits of a well-planned and healthy population on health, education and social well-being, especially for a country like Uganda?
Then the structure of the population changes from what we call a youthful pyramidal structure to a rectangular structure, meaning there are many people who are living, are surviving, there are many working people, there are no longer very many children because people are working, they have access to education, they no longer produce so many children, and then they are surviving, and they are surviving longer.
Ugandan women produce on average 7 children in their lifetime. Dr. Mbonye says that as a ministry, they have proposed sensitization and education as some of the short-term and long-term measures to address the problem.
You can take advantage of a high population growth by giving the young people the right skills, you give them the right education, nutrition and skills, so that you can take advantage of a bigger population with skills. And that's what we call demographic dividend.
Though the number of teenage pregnancies have decreased from 43% in 1995, 32% in 2006 to 24% this year, Dr. Mbonye says more interventions are necessary to considerably scale down this figure.
Giving adolescents information and skills to delay the sexual encounter, to delay their sexual activity until they are ready to get married.
Governments and aid agencies all over the world are concerned about the decreasing provision of basic social services compared to the world's population of 7 billion. In Uganda, the government and the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, are advocating for not just budgetary provisions for basic services like water, health and skills development to address unemployment and well-being challenges, but also creating awareness about the problem. Moses Akena, NTV.
Thank you, Moses Akena. Now, to lose a loved one is painful, but the process of burying them, putting them away forever, is even more painful. In Uganda, how quickly the deceased is buried will depend on a number of factors playing out at the time. Others are the religion of the deceased, how they died, and the arrangements that the family has put in place. Typically, Ugandans bury their dead any day of the week, as opposed to, for instance, in neighboring Kenya, where burials are conducted only over the weekend. In this special report, Josephine Karunji explores whether Ugandans can warm up to the idea of burying their dead on the weekends to save time for productive work.
This could be any day of the week.
In Uganda, burials have never been restricted to specific days. It all depends on the family of the deceased deciding the day they will be interred. But there is now a suggestion that all burials be scheduled for the weekend to save on man-hours for work.
Economically, it makes sense. But practically, we must have very well set mortuaries in almost every district of Uganda.
Attending burials from Monday to Friday consumes time that we would otherwise be using for productive work.
The costs involved are very high because we are talking about the costs of mortuary services and maintaining the body through this time. I do think that actually it's very ridiculous and scandalous because when someone loses a loved one, they normally switch off. You can't expect them to concentrate, to do work in office.
In 2008, former Vice President, the straight-talking and controversial Specioza Wandera Kazibwe fronted the idea that burials be reserved for weekends. She kicked off a storm among conservative Ugandans who vehemently opposed the idea. But recently, President Yoweri Museveni backed the idea, saying Ugandans are stuck in pre-industrial traditions of going to bury everyone any day. He argued that this tradition is incompatible with hard work and personal development. But are Ugandans ready for this change?
We are not ready 100%, but we have some capacity. For instance, in a week we can have between 15 and 30 bodies kept here. We are talking about people who die from the hospital. So when they die, those are our bodies.
We need morgues in regional places. Apparently, I think it is only hospitals that have fridges and maybe a few funeral homes.
There are a number of things that need to be considered before this idea can work or be accepted in Uganda.
We are going to undergo high-tech renovation, and one of the areas we are going to expand is the mortuary. So we are moving from 30 to 100 in a week. So that would be more than enough capacity as far as we are concerned.
As long as the body is embalmed, well embalmed. Embalming means preserving. Embalm and then refrigerate. The body can stay for even a year, for as long as it takes.
More people will have to be trained to deal with the many more bodies and the hospitals better equipped with more fridges. Presently, most of the private funeral homes can accommodate no more than 5 bodies at a go. They largely rely on hospitals that have refrigeration facilities.
Other hospitals, Butabika has a capacity of about 30 or so. Then there's Bombo Military Hospital. They also have a capacity of not less than 30. So I think we would handle.
Some are not working. A while ago, some time back, we saw Ginger Hospital. They are displaying their mortuary. Was completely out of order. And you find that many hospitals are in the same state.
Managers at a private funeral home told us that each day a body spends at the home, the family pays 50,000 shillings. Government will have to improve public health facilities since many cannot afford the cost of keeping a body at a funeral home. There is also the likelihood that some people may resort to treating the bodies of their loved ones themselves to avoid these costs.
Yes, you can, if you are trained. But if you are not trained, then you don't know what to do.
Across the border in Kenya, it is a tradition to bury on weekends, especially on Saturday. Some say this is to allow loved ones from all over to travel in time for the funeral. Kenya also has more well-equipped funeral homes. The tradition is the same in West Africa, although for them, funerals are big business and big occasions where the wealthy can even be buried after a year. But it seems Ugandans will not easily welcome burials strictly on weekends.
Some religions like Muslims. The Muslims, when somebody dies, we have to make sure that we bury, not immediately, but on that very same day. So now if we say that we bury on Saturday and a Muslim has died, say, on Thursday, it becomes a problem.
That's a time for grieving. You can't expect someone to be in office, I find it, unfortunate that such a proposal has come up.
over 70% of the population stay in the village. And if you look at the level of poverty in Uganda, it's rising every day. Every day, poverty is rising. So if you start saying someone deep in Amoro, when he lost someone on Monday to keep the dead body until Saturday, automatically the dead body would have started rotting. Therefore, what the president said, maybe he would refer only to big people, like those who work in the government level, or members of parliament, or those ones whose burial expenses shall be taken care of by the state.
Josephine Karunji, NTV.
We will take a short break and return with these stories and so much more. Still to come on Talk of the Nation tonight, we discuss the question of terrorism. And in football, Uganda cranes in a 2-0 win in their build-up match against the Eastern Select side in Soroti. NTV Weekend Edition continues shortly.
You are watching NTV Weekend Edition.
With every game live and in HD and 2 dedicated 24-hour channels, we'll make you feel like you're there because we are Brazil. The 2014 FIFA World Cup Brazil starts 12 June live on SuperSport, your world of champions on DSTV.
Subscribe for as low as 26,000 Uganda shillings per month or get fully installed for 279,000 Uganda shillings.
You are watching NTV Weekend Edition.
Welcome back. Now on Thursday this week, the U.S. Embassy in Kampala issued a terror alert warning its citizens against traveling to Entebbe International Airport. According to a message which was widely circulated on social media and in the international media, it worryingly warned that insurgents were planning to attack the airport between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. on Thursday. But the Ugandan officials accused the American officials of being alarmist over a usual intelligence brief. A day after 2 Eritrean nationals were arrested in a case which underpins the culture of racial profiling. To discuss the latent terrorism threat and the state of our preparedness, I am joined by Mr. David Waswa, Acting Commissioner of Technical Services Counter-Terrorism. Good evening, Mr. Waswa, and welcome to Talk of the Nation.
Good evening, thank you.
We'll get right into it. Now, the recent terror alert, which resulted into a near diplomatic spat between government officials and their U.S. counterparts, should have been avoided, perhaps. Why are the Americans being accused of being alarmist after they issued a terror alert?
Well, I don't think it is an accusation as per se, but we shall appreciate that terrorism being what it is, any step you lose, any second you lose, may end up leading you to a strategy, leading you to strategic danger. So I would not say that we blame them, but probably there was some kind of maybe breakdown of information, or some kind of hurriedly doing it. However, we have always shared information with the American Embassy and other agencies over terrorism, and we compare notes. Okay. And when we see, we compare and see if what they have heard or what they have is what we have here, then we can probably go ahead and tell the public, or if we need, depending on the zone, depending on how we have analyzed. When we analyze, there are a few basic things we look at: the W's, who, what, when, where, you know, and there is a zoning. So if it hits the orange, probably then it is ready to pass it over to the public. But we get a lot of information, much of which we don't actually pass on, but we continue analyzing it. So I would say that yes, it could have been that it was a little fast, but terrorism being what it is, you could find that it had actually some fact in it. And terrorists being cowards, you know, once they hear that you have probably
sent out an alert
or known about their plan, they can choose to delay the attack or abort, you know, the mission. So it happens. It helps in one way or the other. I personally appreciate, you know, the fact that we make our people knowledgeable as this information comes in.
Yes.
The only thing we have to control is, you know, the fear, because we have to balance how much people should know, you know, and how do we avoid to send them into panic. Because once we go into panic and we are sent into fear, for them they score, you know, because their intention is to keep us in fear, you know, so that we can lose business, you can fail to do our normal activities and things like that. But I would say that we don't regret. We don't regret anything over the mission, and we're able to contain the situation, and normality should continue.
Okay, now on Thursday, you put up a spectacular show right in the middle of the city with the patrol that went on. What was that all about? And isn't the fight against terrorism a lot more complex than just strutting around the city and putting on a show? Because that's what it looked like.
Well, that's what you would think. But the fact is, the activities that ran, or the exercises that we conducted in Kampala, were entirely independent of the threat that was there to attack the airport. This was a planned activity, a planned exercise. You know, we've been passing on guidelines and you know, to the public over what to do, how to do it, you know, how do you search a person, how do you interact with the person you search, what do you look for, things like that. But as we audit ourselves, we find that the public is not actually doing what we are doing, you know. That is actually a preventive measure, much as we look at of these things, but it also prevents bad people from coming to it. So we prepared that on that day we shall be moving out to town to do a demonstration on showing the people how to do this. So the deployments that were made in NTV airport, it was just a coincidence that the activity fell on the day when the threat, but they are not connected at all.
Okay, now there's a question of nipping in the bud sleeper cells, which are the breeding grounds for terrorism. What is your approach towards this?
The nipping into?
There is a question of trying to arrest the sleeper cells, which tend to be the breeding ground for terrorism. What tends to be your approach towards dealing with the cells before the terrorists actually come out and manifest?
Yeah, you know, it is important that for us to observe that the best way of containing terrorism lies under prevention. And if we can capitalize on that, and prevention, of course, involves everybody's participation. It needs all of us to come on board. Now, we need, first of all, to appreciate the level of the threat by understanding what it is, how it manifests, you know, and how the method they use to attack, how do they coordinate, how do they operate. That's awareness, basically. Then, when we know that, then we can know how to prevent this. So, the best way of containing an attack is preventing it from, because a bomb, once it explodes, that is a blow delivered. Okay, whether people have died or not, that's secondary. So we prefer in reaching out to stop the act before it happens. So that's how we run into, you know, intercepting these activities before they happen. So when we get this information of any pending attack, we need to move as fast as possible. Speed is very critical in this, and it is probably what has made us able of containing this situation to some level. At least you will agree with me that since 2010, now 4 years down the road, we not have any serious terror attack or any terror attack in Uganda. But it doesn't mean that those people went back and folded their hands. They've been trying. The reasons they are giving as to why they are attacking other, neighbors and so on, are the very reason they would be, even more, that they would be interested in attacking us as well. Yes. So intercepting them before they actually do it is the best option. And once we can achieve that, we shall keep safe.
And probably my final question tonight is, there is the issue of racial profiling. For example, what played out yesterday with the arrest of the 2 Eritreans at Forest Mall. How can we fight terrorism without necessarily stigmatizing certain communities? I think it's really important for the public to know how we can do this.
That is very important. It is one thing having terrorism and how to fight it. You must do it in a way that the way you fight terrorism does not breed more terrorism.
That's true.
That's the biggest challenge we have. And it explains the complexion in this crime. Now, we have to appreciate, everybody, that much as we need to be vigilant and suspicious of people, many of the people that we suspect are actually innocent. So it is kind of hard to balance these two. You suspect someone probably is a terrorist, but on the other hand, he may, be innocent. So balancing that is it, but it is a fact that we have to appreciate. And when we are fighting terrorism, we are fighting the ideology of terrorism, not without anybody can have that.
That's true.
It's not tribe, it's not religion, it's not age, it's not a nation, but the ideology. So we should avoid going for specific category of people. Anybody can get a terrorist. Now, the way it was perceived was probably not right. Another thing we have to appreciate is that for us to be safe, each of us has a responsibility. And when I probably want to check you or question you for something, it doesn't mean that you are actually terrorist. But you must appreciate that for us to be able, this must happen. So if I take you through 1 or 2 hours of interrogation and questioning, we should appreciate that it is for a collective benefit. We need to all achieve, and everything has got a cost whatsoever. So in order for us to keep safe, there is a cost that we have to spend. But I want to call upon Ugandans, okay, not to be discriminative at all. I went in a certain city in East Africa where people of certain Oregon once entered a taxi, people would move out. That's bad, because it favors the other side, that if an opportunity avails itself, this person can convince to join that side. Yeah.
And on that note, I'm going to bring this conversation to a close. Thank you so much for joining us on Talk of the Nation.
It's a pleasure.
Tonight.
Thank you.
That is Mr. David Waswa, an Acting Commissioner of Technical Services Counterterrorism, joining us on Talk of the Nation tonight to discuss the question of terrorism.
You are watching NTV Weekend Edition.
Oh, hey babe.
Hi love, how are you? After last time, I've been worried.
Huh?
It's okay love, I've taken the test and I'm not pregnant.
Oh, thank goodness.
But before we celebrate, I think it's important we should start practicing safe sex.
Safe what?
Safe sex by using condoms.
But Fifi, don't you love me?
Yes, I do.
Don't you trust me?
I trust you.
But condoms are for people who don't trust each other.
Kenny, all of our friends are using condoms.
But Fifi...
Kenny, are you ready to be a father? Are you ready to meet my parents?
You know what, Fifi? You have a point.
Condoms protect you from unplanned pregnancies and sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. Talk to your partner about using condoms today, because if it's not on, it's not safe.
Mama's cooking. Let's help her. Wait! My mama says before touching food, you should wash your hands with soap.
But my hands are clean.
Can't see germs, but they're everywhere.
Look under special blue light. To protect against germs, I recommend regularly use soap. Safeguard removes millions of germs and additionally it inhibits regrowth of germs that might cause skin rashes for hours.
That is why me, mommy, daddy, and my brother regularly use Safeguard.
Supported by the African Medical Association.
Now you can grab your own StarTimes decoder for only 70,000 Uganda shillings. Get your decoder with a basic bouquet at only 86,500 shillings, or with a unique bouquet at only 100,000 shillings. With 70 plus channels, StarTimes gives you the best digital life. Subscribe to any bouquet for 2 months and get 15 days free, or subscribe for 3 months and get 1 month free. For more information, please contact us on 0417 117700. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Welcome to NTV Weekend Sport. Now, youngster Maya Farouk and Joseph Ochaya scored a goal each in either halves of the game to hand the Uganda Cranes a 2-0 win over select side from the eastern part of the country. The game, dubbed Cranes Namutima, was played in Soroti town. The national team is preparing to play their second game of the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers.
Uganda Cranes will once again have Farouk Mia to credit for their 2-0 victory over North-East select side in Soroti. The youngster helped the national side by netting the opening goal of the game in the first half after several attempts, with the home side looking better in all departments. The game, which attracted Uganda Cranes fans of all walks of life, had many helping themselves to have a chance to watch the match on top of the trees. The introduction of Emmanuel Rukwi made the Cranes better, and in one of their attacks he was brought down and the center referee did not have a second thought on awarding a penalty. Joseph Ochaya stepped up to convert the spot kick for the game to end 2-0 in favor of Uganda Cranes, for the coaches to give an insight of the teams.
Possibly my defense wasn't so good. They allowed those of Okwe to possess the ball and move with the ball, whereby they got the chance to shoot the ball inside the net.
Players that they have a bright future in front of them, and I strongly hope that people responsible, because I'm in charge of senior national team, people responsible for that aspect, and when it comes that FUFA Regions tournament, that these boys will really present themselves.
Uganda Cranes return to Kampala tomorrow to fine-tune for the 2015 AFCON qualifier against Mauritania on the 19th of this month. Alfred Odong, NTV Weekend Sport.
On to volleyball now. National Women Volleyball League champions Ndeje University proceed to the second round of this year's league with their heads high after concluding the first round unbeaten. But they struggled to win against Uganda Christian University despite leading in the first 2 sets by 25-6 and 25-20 respectively. The Mukono University girls made a shock comeback in the third set, which they won 25-19 and the fourth set 28-26 respectively to push the game into the decisive set. Ndeje used pedigree in the fifth set to win by 51-11. UCU had earlier on beaten the veteran side KVC by 3-2. KVC revenged the UCU loss on Nemo Stars, whom they beat by straight sets.
Tunisia with a lot of experience and wanted to come and execute it here. Our main threat is VVC, of which we overtook them. That gave us upper hand that we can still top the league. And reason being, we are the league champions. We really have to play to defend our trophy and give in our all.
And Argentina has progressed to the World Cup semi-finals after beating Belgium by 1-0. We have the highlights of that game.
Messi has done a full 180-degree turn there before finding Di Maria. It's into the area to Higuain! Goal! Argentina score in the 8th minute of the game, and it is Gonzalo Higuain with his first World Cup goal of 2014. He didn't have a second in which to take aim, but he was deadly accurate when he did. Messi made the inroads. But it's a stylish finish from the Argentine number 9. He got a lucky ricochet, but he just had a swing of the right leg at it. In many ways, the ball could have ended up anywhere. Where it did end up was in the Belgian net. And Higuain is off the mark. He's broken his duck for the World Cup finals. Thibaut Courtois cannot believe it.
And that brings tonight's newscast to a close. I'm Rukshana Namimba. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining me and watching NTV Weekend Edition. I leave you with the moment of the day. Good night.
Sometimes children have amazing ideas, but they can lead to tough stains. And for tough stains, there's new Omo Fast Action. Its super fast cleaning technology removes stains fast. New Omo, no one removes tough stains faster.
Dental tips with Sensodyne.
Sensodyne can be used every day. You don't have to use another toothpaste. For me to have a toothpaste that solves that problem so simply is what I like about Sensodyne.
Tomorrow night.
Competitors must traverse 9 different sections. They'll first have to get past the ditch,